Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in. This is a screencast schematic presentation and recording for the part of the lesson that has looking at the Roman Republic and the Roman Empire. Before we get started, please let me encourage you to open up to today's lesson and to scroll down the correct section and get ready to fill in the blanks accordingly with the content that coincides with the presentation. Please remember that you can replay any part of this presentation for detailed clarity and repetition later on. Let's go ahead and get started. Consider this question, please. What were the lasting characteristics of the Roman Republic and the Roman Empire? Essentially, why do we have to talk about this in world cultures? So, in a sense, with geography, in addition to Greece, another significant classical civilization was ancient Rome, located nearby. The Roman Republic and Roman Empire are two iconic forms of ancient civilizations that still hold importance today. Now, there are many geographic features that led to the success of the Roman Empire, as big and as expansive as it was. Rome was located on the Italian peninsula along the Mediterranean Sea, as depicted here. The Romans were influenced by the Greeks and a neighboring tribe called the Etruscans. Roman religion was polytheistic and based on Greek gods, and usually the names changed. As you can see here by this chart, there are many stark similarities between both Greek deities and Roman deities. If you remember watching Crash Course Pantheons, some of these differences were conveyed to you. Also, Roman writing was called Latin, and it was based on Greek writing too. For those of you who might be familiar with using Roman numerals, or also additionally just letters in general, you're very much so familiar with some of the aesthetics here from what you can see from this chart. Also, in terms of culture of ancient Rome, Roman architecture borrowed heavily from Greek styles. Like Greek agoras, Roman cities had a forum for markets and public gatherings. In fact, forums were often central cultural hubs too, where you could catch many different activities going on all at once. Rome's society, however, was divided into three major groups. At the top were the nobles, often called patricians, and they controlled most of the land and held key military and government positions. Patricians also made up 5% of all Roman citizens accordingly. If you look carefully at this chart here, you can analyze the life of a patrician in Roman society. Of course, you can see the elaborate structures of their housing accommodations and their living lifestyles. In terms of ancient Roman society here, most Roman people were commoners called plebeians. They were farmers, shopkeepers, and/or peasants too. Plebeians paid the majority of taxes collected in the Roman Republic, and they made up 95% of the Roman citizens. By contrast here, you can see how plebeians lived, and you can essentially see some of the ways upon which they lived in maybe not the best housing arrangements too. Often Roman cities were noted to be very crowded, and additionally with a lot going on, a lot of commotion. At the bottom of society were slaves and residents of the Roman Republic who were not Roman. This strict social hierarchy, in a sense, kept slaves subservient, and the Roman Empire was iconic for using slaves for many different purposes. As you can imagine, this type of strict social hierarchy also had a purpose too, especially when it came to governing successfully. The government of ancient Rome. When Rome was first founded, it was ruled by kings, but in 509 BCE, the Romans created an official republic. A republic is a form of government in which citizens have the power to elect their leaders. In many ways, you could say that the United States of America, as far as our form of government, is a republic. The most important feature of the Republic was the Senate, whose 300 members were elected by citizens to make laws and also taxes. In 451 BCE, government officials wrote down Rome's laws onto the 12 tables, which were hung in the forum for all citizens to see. Additionally, the 12 tables were based on the idea that all citizens of Rome had a right to the protection of the law. The 12 tables made clear how the law would be applied to Roman citizens. Here's a depiction of what they might have looked like. Now you can also see some similarities between the ways upon which Rome and the United States of America would set up its government and essentially execute power accordingly. Key themes here in this chart that are conveyed are membership, requirements and qualifications, execution of powers, checks and balances, and administration justice. The United States also has a republican form of government, like we said, which is very similar to the one used in ancient Rome. For the reasons that I mentioned on the previous slide, you can clearly see that in many ways, these stark similarities have surpassed the test of time. Now let's talk about the Roman military. Rome was protected by an advanced army of professional soldiers, not part-time soldiers who were farmers or merchants by trade. Now, in terms of the military, Rome had the largest army in the Mediterranean at the time. It was also very highly organized and structured. Many historians note that it's this structure and systematic rule that was placed and embellished upon in the military that helped the military be successful. The Roman soldiers were divided into groups of 5,000 men called legions. Each legion was divided into smaller groups of 80 men called centuries, commanded by elite soldiers called centurions. You can see here, in a sense, the way that the military would essentially operate and train for eventual success in combat. The highly organized command structure ensured that legions could be rapidly deployed against the enemy at a moment's notice. I'm sure that you can imagine that the larger that Rome got, the more important the military got to be. Advances in military technology, such as catapults, enabled the professional Roman soldiers to not only defend the Romans' territory, but to expand it greatly as well. Here's a picture of a giant catapult. Roman soldiers used various large war machines too. Aside from catapults, moving in formation required dramatic and very effective, deliberate movements. This, of course, would come to fruition during the Punic Wars. Please proceed to the next part of the presentation.